Continuing with our discussion that we started yesterday, remember, about road infra companies, or reports that the Maharashtra government may or has stopped payments to ongoing infra projects in the state. While Dilip Bilkon told us yesterday nothing of that sort has happened, let's pose the same question and more to Sadbhav Infra, which has 15% of its order book in the state of Maharashtra. Nitin Patel, the ED of the company, joins us right now on the show. Mr. Patel, good having you. Thanks for joining in. What are the rumblings that you hear? Have payments been stopped or are getting delayed from Maharashtra?
No, not at all yet. Nothing has basically that kind of signages are there. And in fact, the project work is going on smoothly. So till now, whatever work has been done, certified, the payment has been done by the government basically on time. And now what we have heard, actually, even though the basically some another statements also we have heard that there is some one or two basically aspects which has been commented, but nothing has heard from any of the government authority or the basically the site related basically the authorities has been intimated to us.
Okay, so you have the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway project for sure. You don't foresee any risks to that project?
As of now, we don't see, because if you see, the entire project has been conceived as a special purpose vehicle. And if you see the ground reality, more than 90% of the land has been acquired by the government so far in the entire project. Lot of work has been happened since last 8 to 10 months actually. Plus the financial close for the entire project has been done led by State Bank of India and almost around 12 to 14 banks. They have already extended the support for the project. So the significant work has been done so far, and this is also the requirement, because highway infrastructure is something basically which always basically the necessity we have seen over the period of time. And once the good highways are basically developed, lot of development has also we have seen basically. So this we don't see basically such kind of challenge should come actually.
Okay, Mr. Patel, talk to us a little more then about the business. How is the execution? Has it picked up in the second half? What are the pending appointed dates for a couple of projects?
Fine. First of all, the Vadodara Keem, the project basically, which was another large project, 1400 crore was the size, and that we have received the appointed date on 1st of November. So now that project has started. So we will start getting the incremental revenue from that project. Second thing, the Gadag-Hunali, recently we have achieved the financial close. We have submitted the documents, and we are expecting that the Gadag-Hunali appointed date should happen basically just a couple of weeks actually, because a large part of land has been acquired by the government so far. So we don't see basically any challenge for taking the appointed date in that project. So these two are the incremental one, and also the other basically the greenfield projects, which has somehow affected because of the extended monsoon. So that has been also picked up, mainly this Lucknow Ring Road. Basically that has also been picked up, and the Udaipur bypass, that has also been now basically the execution has picked up pace actually. Also the Jodhpur Ring Road, that is also a greenfield project. So that way we are expecting the second half should be a better one as compared to the first half.
Okay, let's hope for that. But what about the 9 BOT projects that were being sold to Infra with? I believe regulatory approval for one of those projects was pending. What is the status of the entire scheme of things right now?
See, first of all, the entire transaction, when we have conceived, it has not basically linked to the all 9 needs to be done. So we have entered the separate share purchase agreements for all of the some of these SPVs actually. So the 8 we have already received. So that transaction, we are almost on the verge of the closing the entire condition precedents. So we expect that by end of next week, all the CPs will be over. So we should be basically in a position to basically complete, declare the closing of the transaction, and the process of basically getting the funds from the Infra Trust will start actually. So that is where we are as of now. And the one SPV which is there, that is also in the advanced stage. The government of Gujarat, basically, they are having only this SPV to the client, so they have sought the approval from the Advocate General. So once it will be received, they will basically issue the NOC for the same. So rest other things are in the place.
How much money will flow in against these 8 projects that you mentioned?
So all these 8 projects put together are a little above the 2,400 crores is the equity value.
Okay, and the money will come in by next week, or that will take some more time?
No, see, the closing will happen basically by the end of next week. So then after the process will start. So it has basically some process. Trust needs to do the basically the to call the board meeting and the basically shareholders meeting. So they will basically complete that procedure as per the requirement. So then after we will be able to go forward for the basically getting the money from the trust actually.
And all the entire 2,400 crore will be used towards repayment of debt, right?
Not entirely. See, if you see the breakup is that some of the basically consideration is in form of the units of the trust actually, number one, and the remaining is the cash. So out of the cash which is there, the total we are supposed to get around 2,550 crores for the entire transaction. So out of the same 1,900 crore is coming in form of the cash. So that around 1,400 crore we are utilizing to make the prepayment into the system, and the rest will be available for transaction related costs, tax, as well as the basically to fund the ongoing hybrid annuity projects. The balance equity will be taken care of. So that is how the structure will work.
Mr. Patel, I reckon Sadbhav Infrastructure Projects was to merge with engineering in about 6 to 9 months from the April timelines. Now, can you give us some details about where has it reached?
See, now basically based on the valuations of the valuers, the swap ratio has been decided, finalized, and now almost we are now ready to file our request, basically submission to stock exchanges just within this week itself. So once we get the stock exchange approval, then basically the other process as described by the basically the regulatory authority for getting the lenders as well as the creditors approval will start actually. So I think obviously it will take its own time, but we are of the view that we should be able to get through basically all these approvals well within the desired time frame.
Okay, and we wish you all the best for that. Now, just the next couple of questions, Mr. Patel, on the financials and some points which need some attention from your end, and maybe the answers would help. If we look at the receivables under the service concession agreements, those have increased quite substantially. Why has this happened, and when do you expect recoveries in the same?
See, largely, if you can see the design of the hybrid annuity projects, there are two major things which has happened, hardly not 2 but 3 points. One is the price escalation on 60% component. So only the 40% component NHA is paying along with the grant payment. The remaining 60% will accumulate and it will be paid upon the provisional completion certificate. Not paid, but it will be added as a part of the total project cost and will be paid over the period of the annuity. So that can be eventually realized once the provisional completion certificate is there. That is one point. Second point is the difference of the GST amount. So post the GST implementation, the projects which we bidded out and the one before the GST regime, so there is a certain additional cost towards the GST is there. So as of now, the outstanding for us actually of the 7 projects is almost closer to 135 to 140 crore. And even the price escalation amount is almost 225 to 230 crores. Plus there are certain change of scope happen into the hybrid annuity project for which the payment basically come in a staggered manner as and when the work completes and gets certified. So these are basically largely the 3 points which has basically added to the receivables as compared to the earlier ones. And if you see basically the larger execution has happened into the HAM itself. So that is why the component is little bit higher. So as and when the EPC execution will improve, so this will continue to go down. And once the PCOD will happen, then slowly it will start going down also.
So are there timelines that one can anticipate for this, or you can predict for the same?
For change of scope and GST, we are not basically expecting it should go beyond a quarter or so actually. But price escalation definitely, as and when the provisional completion certificate will happen, then only the basically flow will start. So according to us, in a staggered manner, it will take at least a year or so actually.
Okay, and I would reckon that that all of these things would help you reduce your consolidated debt as well, because as I see, the consolidated debt stood at about 6,600 crores at the end of first half. What are the debt repayment plans, Mr. Patel?
See, actually, if you see that this asset monetization transaction itself will take out the consolidated debt to a large extent actually. So if we, as I have mentioned, the 1400 crore is going to be utilized for the repayment. So on a standalone basis at the entire group level, so we are seeing the leveraging should be hardly around 0.25 to 0.3 of the net worth actually at Sadbhav engineering level. And eventually the Sadbhav Infra on a standalone, basically it will become almost a debt free on a standalone basis. And the 9 projects which are going, the debt of almost around 4,200 crores of the SPV level, that will also go out of the consolidated. So on console basis, we are seeing that almost to the tune of around 5,800 crore of the debt should go out once this transaction gets closed.
Okay, and again for that also wish you the best. Just one last question on this, at least from my end. When we look at the console performance, Mr. Patel, some of the subsidiaries, there are large losses, and the parent company is continuing to support these subsidiaries despite the performance not being all that great. Why is that the case, and when do you expect some recovery in value?
First of all, if we see there are the 12 operational projects within the group actually, the 12 SPVs. So if we see the consolidated basis, every quarter we are giving the net cash generation from all of these basically SPVs. So on a net cash basis, as against these 10 SPVs which is generating the decent cash flow, cash surplus, as against that the Rohtak-Panipat and Rohtak-Hisar where basically we have to support. Okay, but all put together on an every quarter on quarter, the cash generation is increasing actually. So definitely these are the projects where we need to give the support, and particularly we have also came out of the certain solutions we have already discussed with the lenders of the projects. So we are of the view that the Rohtak-Hisar we should be able to come with the conclusion by end of the March. And for Rohtak-Panipat, it will take again 1 year actually. So by that time we will be able to basically complete that. So this is how the plan has been made overall within the group level for these 2 SPVs.
Okay. Mr. Patel, just before we wrap this conversation, not too sure if you're in a position to comment on this one. Nearly 55% of the promoter holding has been pledged, and that's been another issue, I guess, with the shareholders. And what I can check with the latest release on the exchanges, there is more of promoter shareholding which has been pledged. So could you confirm as on date how much of the total promoter holding has been pledged, and by when can we expect that to be released?
See, on the last week of November, almost around 22% of the promoters has got released actually. So it has already got released, and it has been intimated to the exchanges also. So as of now, the outstanding basically the pledge is around 26 to 27% of the promoters holding actually.